I'm Rabbi Daniel Zucker of Temple Hatikvah in Flanders, and welcome to this week's Bit of Torah. Our double parsha of Acharei Mot begins with what Rabbi Yitz Greenberg terms, quote, the forces for life and for quality of life, which are in binary opposition to the forces for death, end quote, which here deal with the consequences of the tragic deaths of the sons of Aaron, Nadav, and Abihu. If we look at the entire first parasha Acharei Mot, we see that it promotes those actions and relationships that it sees as strengthening the life forces and the integrity of the community. It sets boundaries for what it believes will promote a healthy, viable community. Now, when we look at the second parsha, Kedoshim, we discover that the Torah is trying to teach us about elevating ourselves from the mundane to the special, or holy in life. In verse 2 of chapter 19 of Leviticus, we read, first in Hebrew, Daber el kol adat b'nei Yisrael v'amarta alehem, Kedoshim tiyu, ki kadosh ani Hashem. God tells Moses, speak to the entire congregation of the Israelites and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord, am holy. The concept underlying this statement is known in Latin as imitatio Dei, which means imitating God. Now, one might legitimately ask, how do we humans imitate God? Our traditions are explicated by the Midrash, which has us look at God's behavior towards humanity. Just as God clothed the naked Adam and Eve, fed the hungry Israelites in the desert, visited and healed the recovering Abraham, freed the captive Israelites from bondage, and buried the prophet Moses, so are we to engage in those and other acts of gimilut hasadim, acts of loving kindness, actions that promote the civic welfare. Realizing that this concept may be a bit difficult to comprehend, the Torah adds the following command in verse 18. V'yahavta l'recha kamocha. You shall love your fellow as yourself, which is another form of the golden rule. This parasha is part of what Bible scholars term the holiness code. And within its verses, if we look carefully, we can find a parallel and reinforcement of the Ten Commandments. Now, to close, I'll admit my partiality for this portion, as it is what I read at my bar mitzvah 59 years ago. Shabbat Shalom.